Hey yo! Welcome back to the channel, people. Welcome back to another live stream. Welcome back to the channel, people. Welcome back to another live stream. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. This is going to be an amazing live stream. I'm going to break down Bitcoin from a bearish outlook. I'm going to break down the altcoin market. I'm going to break down Ethereum. I am I'm going to analyze, a bunch altcoins. So, you want to make sure that you stay with me. This is going to be a good one. Uh for for a big chunk of my analysis, I'm going to not use any indicators. But at some point, I do want to use the MACD in terms of momentum and talk about, why even if the price of Bitcoin was to go back in the low $90,000 range, it wouldn't change anything. You know that I'm bearish on this market. You know that I'm expecting the price of Bitcoin, the price of many of these altcoins to continue down for a chunk of 2026. So, this is going to be a live stream where, I really, really dive deep and, break down why I'm bearish on this market and why I don't see a reason to be a buyer from a long term perspective. So, if you enjoy my content, this is going to be a really, really good one. So, welcome back to the channel. And I do want to apologize. I meant to live stream earlier today, but of course, something came up and I had to, push it back just a little bit. But it doesn't matter because we are here, all right? Here we are. And we should be able. Look, this is going to be a long one. Like, probably this is going to be this is going to be among my longest live streams. If you look at my live streams, on average, I'm probably live streaming for about, 45 to 50 minutes. Sometimes, yeah, that's on average. My longest live stream, I think, is gotta be maybe this one right here, an hour 20 something minutes. There's another one right here, another 20, yeah, an hour 20 something. So this is going to be one of those long live streams where, I take my time, I'm not in a rush, and I dig deep and, really share what I believe is what's going on. So if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button, guys. And I do want to say thank you very much. You guys are smashing the subscribe button. You guys are smashing the like button. It is truly, truly helping, and it is reflecting with the views. I'm seeing a lot of more views for my last couple updates. So really, really appreciate you guys. And once again, I am going to look at Bitcoin without any indicators, from a structure perspective. And I'm going to share with you why I remain bearish on this market, why this is not a market that I'm very excited about, and why my belief continues to be that for the chunk of 2026, we are most likely are going to be in a downtrend, meaning price will continue down. So, anyways, let's jump into this, without wasting any time. And we are going to start with Bitcoin, of course. We are going to start with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is at 89,000 and just $200. Earlier today, we broke above $91,000. I'm on X. I was looking through my feed And oh my God, what an excitement. All right, you would have thought that BTC broke above $100,000. So many excitement. So many people were talking about how BTC is going back to the old time high. But I want to be a voice of reason. All right, I want to be someone that can look at this market from a TA perspective and break down to you exactly what is going on in real time without any bias. All right, it feels like most analysis are looking at Bitcoin not from a neutral perspective, but they have a bias. Either they have a bullish bias or they have a bearish bias without looking at the chart first. Now, I can't 100% be wrong with my analysis. And I'm not saying that I am going to be right, they are going to be wrong, or they are going to be wrong and I am going to be right. What I'm saying is that form a bias, but after you look at the chart, all right, yes, you are going to have either a bullish bias or a bearish bias, but at least look at the chart of Bitcoin first, before you form any bias. So, looking at Bitcoin's weekly time frame, all right, looking at this Bitcoin weekly time frame, you can make an argument that BTC is still in an uptrend, based on the fact that we are still above $74,000. All right, I get it. You can make an argument that we are still in an uptrend, and as long as the price of Bitcoin is above 74,000, we have higher highs and higher lows. All right, but in my opinion, you also have to consider the fact that we tried to break above the previous all-time high, all right, and we failed to do that. All right, we tried to break above the previous all-time high, and we failed to do that. And not only did we fail to break above the previous all-time highs, we also lost some very, very important key levels on the weekly. The very first one was this $172,000 higher low. All right, this is a higher low that was put in after Bitcoin had a pullback right after it hit an all-time high of $124,000. That was a major level that was lost. The second major level that was also lost was this one right here. All right, $98,000. When Bitcoin first broke above its all-time high of $108,000 right here, right, we had a pullback and we put in another higher low, right? $98,000 was the higher low that we put in right after failing to continue above the previous all-time high of $109,000. So once that was broken, that was a red flag, all right? That was a red flag. Yes, we haven't broken $74,000, but that's because, we haven't retested. Right? We have not retested $74,000. And to me, that is the only reason we haven't broken. Now, there is something that we haven't seen on the weekly that is going to confirm if BTC is, truly in a bear market. And this is why, if somebody was to make an argument that because we don't have this, the uptrend is intact, look, I'm okay with that. All right, I am okay to admit that yes, you could be right because we haven't seen this other part of a downtrend. So what exactly am I talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is a weekly lower high. All right, this is something that we haven't seen. But my belief is that what BTC is doing right now is actually working on a weekly lower high. So a weekly lower high would be Bitcoin failing to continue to go up on this weekly, pulling back and taking out $80,000. That would give us a weekly lower high for the first time since the last bear market. All right, I'll show you an example of that. Using the last bear market, our weekly lower high was right here. All right, or you can say it was right here. It's $52,000. But the most clear one was this one right here, around $48,000. So, in my opinion, this is the one that we are actually working on right now. And if you look at, this price action right here, to me, it looks very similar to what we have right now. So, you have to be patient because when you're dealing with a weekly time frame, things are going to take time. And when I say time, like I mean months. Like this could potentially take a couple months to play out. Now a couple months from here until we get this clear lower high, but the entire process. So coming from $80,000, we are already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We already 8 weeks into this consolidation right here. That is already 2 months. So it might take a couple more weeks, maybe 3 or 4 more weeks for the price to come down and then, take out $80,000, right? It might take a couple more weeks. So if you think about, we 8 weeks already, we 8 weeks in already. It might take another, 2 to 4 weeks. Chad, you're looking at about 12 weeks, man. When we're talking about 12 weeks, we are talking about an entire 3 months. Right? If we go back and we look at this entire lower high, all right, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks. And then to go from the top all the way down until we took out this low right here, you go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, you're looking at 6 weeks. So basically, if we were to experience exactly the same length, you'd be looking at 6 weeks from now. 6 weeks from now, Chad, you're looking at March. Right? You are looking at March, before the price of Bitcoin takes out this $80,000 and give us a confirmation of this weekly lower high. All right? So, a little bit too much information. Hopefully it's not too much. But this is the reason I'm really not excited about the price of Bitcoin. And this is the reason I have a bearish bias in 2026. It's not because I don't like Bitcoin. I'm just looking at BTC, and structurally, I'm seeing a lot of similarities from the last bear market. If you think about this top right here, guys, all right, maybe not very, very similar, but this is very identical if you ask me, all right? And if you think about this lower high right here, all right, this is very similar if you ask me. Just got to be a little bit more patient until, this all plays out. It's very hard to say, hey, this is exactly what's going on. And if you think about, even this low right here, guys, like this looks very similar to this one right here. So there is a lot of similarities. And I'm not saying that we are repeating exactly 2021 all over again. But you know what they say about history, guys? It doesn't always repeat, but it often rhymes. So I think it is rhyming. I think 2021 is rhyming all over again. So this is one of my reasons. I have a bearish bias when it comes to Bitcoin and when it comes to the cryptocurrency market, because structurally, I just think based on what's in front of me and based on what I'm seeing on the charts, I just think we are looking at a market that is in a long-term downtrend. Yes, There's going to be some pops, just like the one we got earlier today. Right? I got a notification that the price of Bitcoin was back above $91,000. I was notified earlier today. But guess what, guys? Because I know what the weekly looks like and because I know what the monthly looks like, I wasn't phased. All right. I wasn't moved. And, I'll come back to look at the chart of Bitcoin. Are we still above $91,000? Absolutely not. Not only are we not there, we're back below $90,000. So then when you go to the daily, all right, I am looking at this and I am trying to figure out a reason, or at least I'm trying to find a reason, to be bullish on Bitcoin. So I'm looking at this and I'm asking myself, what would I like to see, before I go from this bearish bias to having a bullish bias? Okay, let me show you exactly what I would like to see. You see, when you have a market that's in a downtrend like this, when you have a market that's trending down like this, there's a couple of things that you need to see before you can, go from having a bearish bias to having a bullish bias. And what you need to see is something that looks like this, all right? Since we have a very clear downtrend with lower highs and lower lows, what you need to see is you need to see this structure broken. And the only way to break this structure, you look for the most recent lower high. And in this case, that will be this right here. So what you want is, you want the price to break above the most recent high. You want the price to go up like this. You want to see a pullback. And you want the pullback to not come back down and take out the lows that were put in. So you want to see a higher low. And then, of course, you want to see price go up again. You want to see the price take out this high right here. And you want to see another pullback that puts in another higher low. That is when you know that the structure has finally flipped. And this is a market that is bullish because you now have higher highs and higher lows. And that is exactly, when I look at Bitcoin, that's exactly what I want to see. And I'll give you guys some examples just going back. If you look at this Bitcoin pullback right here, all right, the structure was very, very clear. This is a low right here. This is a lower high. This is a lower low. This is a lower high. This is a lower low. This is a lower high right here. And this is a lower low. Okay? Now, when did we break the structure? Well, we broke the structure when the price of Bitcoin took out this most recent high, which was $88,000. I don't know how many of you guys was watching my market breakdown, was watching my channel when not this one, the previous one. You may remember when BTC broke above $88,000, I became bullish on Bitcoin. So we broke above 88, and then instead of getting a traditional pullback, we consolidate sideways. Sometimes, you don't get the pullback where price comes down. You get the pullback in the form of just a sideways consolidation. This is also very bullish. Whenever you get something like this, you normally want to be a buyer because most likely price will break out to the upside. Okay? So this is exactly what I would like to see right now before I go from having a bearish bias to forming a bullish bias. So the question is, based on the current setup, what is our most recent lower high? Well, in this case, all right, because we had this consolidation right here, you want to see the price of Bitcoin break above, $98,000, or let's just say our most recent high was actually broken, and that was $94,000. All right, let's just say that was our most recent high. The problem I have with that is that when you do get a pullback, price is got to stay above the most recent low. So in this case, that was $89,000. So we broke above the most recent high, $94,000. And then when we got a pullback, we also, took out the most recent low, which was 89,000. Is that really what we're looking for? No, that is not what we're looking for. So this right here, violated, all right, what, that right there violated what we got right here, all right, after taking out this lower high right here, all right. Price didn't pull back and take out these low right here. So, looking at this BTC chart, the only way for me to form an opinion or to have a bullish bias, I would like to see the price of Bitcoin break above $98,000. And I would like to see a pullback that respects this 89,000. I would like to see a higher low. And then if price bounce like this, then there's a reason to be a buyer. All right, let me fix this right here. There's a reason to be a buyer somewhere around, let's just say $94,000. I'm assuming, price pulls, somewhere back into this range right here. Like, who knows where the pullback will bring us, all right? But anyways, if we can get something like this with a daily higher low, then right here you have a reason to be bullish on Bitcoin, because most likely the downtrend structure has been broken. And also, if you were to go back to this initial move right here, that would give you a beautiful continuation of these higher lows right here. Okay, and this would give you a higher high. So something like this will most likely send the price of Bitcoin up. But until we have something like this, until we break this downtrend structure, I don't have a reason to be bullish on Bitcoin. And remember, right here, we are looking at the daily. So if we go to the weekly, our most recent high, you will have to be looking at $126,000. So on the weekly chart, you don't have a reason to be bullish on Bitcoin with the price below 126, because anything below 126, all right, unless we were to get, maybe like a pullback like this, and then price comes back up again, it takes out $98,000, all right, and pull back, and then we go up. Unless we were to get something like this, you got, 126 as your most recent high, and the only way to have a bullish bias, you would have to ask the price of Bitcoin to take out 126, literally. So with that being said, and I know I said a lot already, but it has to be said, structurally, what we want to see is a Bitcoin that is trending like this on the daily. This is not the Bitcoin that we have on the daily. What we have instead is a Bitcoin that is trending like this. So we do not have, a structure that is, bullish for us to have a bullish bias. So hopefully that was helpful, because I wanted to make sure I really talk about Bitcoin from a structure perspective. Forget about price. Just looking at the structure. This is the structure that you want to have, if you want to be bullish on Bitcoin, because otherwise you're playing with fire, to be very honest with you. Now, the next minutes, I am going to spend them talking about momentum and who's actually in control. And who's actually in control of this market from bears and bulls perspective. Like, who is actually in control of this market? Because you can't have both in control of this market. Either you have the bulls in control of the market or you have the bears in control of the market. I don't think you can have in between. Even when the market is ranging, there's going to be periods when the bulls are in control, and there's going to be periods when the bears are in control. And there's also going to be a period where, you just, like, the market is just undecided, right? The market is going sideways. But even when it is going sideways, like, you have those, small windows when, price is going up. So the bulls are in control in the short term. Price is going down. Bears are in control in the short term. So anyways, I want to spend the next minutes, really talking about momentum, and we'll also share with you guys, some of the stuff that I'm coming across on social media. Because look, if you're on X, then you probably are seeing exactly what I'm seeing. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use the MACD indicator. The MACD indicator. Look, first of all, speaking of indicators, every single indicator is lagging. All right, every single one of the indicators is always lagging, guys. There is not one indicator out there that is not lagging other than price action. The only thing that's not lagging is price action. And this is why, all right, learning how to identify, what regime the market is in, meaning identifying the structure of the market from, a bull's perspective, a bear's perspective, or just a market that's going sideways is extremely, extremely important. Because otherwise, you could get yourself in some big trouble. So anyways, I am going to analyze this market from momentum perspective using the MACD indicator. So what I want to do is I want to start from the monthly time frame. And I got to be honest with you guys. If you analyze this market and you ignore the monthly, you are missing the bigger picture. And if you want to make money from this market, you have to be with the bigger picture. The bigger picture is what's going to help you. Excuse me. The bigger picture is going to be what helps you make the big bucks in this game, guys. Like, if you want to be in this market, if you want to be investing, you want to make sure the bigger picture is what you mostly monitor. So let's analyze Bitcoin from a momentum perspective. Using the MACD, I want to be very honest with you guys. This is straightforward. All right? This is not complicated. This is easy. This is technical analysis 101, if we can call it that. Like, this is the most basic right here. So, looking at the Bitcoin monthly, right now, the monthly time frame based on momentum indicator is bearish. The bears are full in control of Bitcoin on the monthly time frame based on this MACD momentum indicator. So you may ask, what am I talking about, chap? I am talking about the MACD histogram. You see, the MACD histogram, the way it works is very simple and straightforward. When the market is bullish, when the market has got a bullish momentum, when the bulls are fully in control of the market, the histogram, which is these bars right here, are going to be green. They are going to be green. This is the type of color that you are going to see. Let me make this bigger so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So when the market is fully bullish and the bulls are in full control of the market, this is what the MACD histogram is going to look like. This is the color that you are going to see. And then when you start running out of momentum, the color is going to go from green to this lighter green color. So you can see right here, we lost momentum. We go from green to a lighter green color. We regained the momentum right here. We went back to a darker green. And then we lost momentum again, went back to a lighter color. All right. So you can see it reflects in the price. Right here, we're just going sideways. This was that 6 months consolidation from April 2024 until sometimes October 2024. And then when the momentum was strong again, when the bulls was once again in control and full in control of the market, you can see the colors changing again. So that is an indication of a market with very, very strong bullish momentum. All right, the color is green, and when you lose the momentum, the color goes from green into a lighter green color. Now, normally, all right, when the bears take control of the market, the colors are going to change not only from green and not only from a lighter green color, they are going to change into a red color. So you can see right here, the histogram is turning red. And you can see they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger because the momentum is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Just like when the bulls first took over, all right, the histogram, starting out small, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It is rising. It is giving you higher highs, if we want to look at it from that perspective. So this right here tells me that the bears are full in control of BTC right now. Right now, the momentum is not with the buyers. It is with the sellers. And this is on the monthly time frame. And I can tell you right now, until this changes, I don't see the price of Bitcoin doing anything major to the upside anytime soon. And this is why I have a bearish bias. Not because I want to, but because I'm looking at this, and this is not what a bullish Bitcoin looks like. Look, we can backtest this if you guys have time. I have time, and I'm sure you have time. So we can take our time and backtest. Let's see what was the performance of Bitcoin when the histogram was red or when the histogram was green. When we were green, was the price going up? When we were red, was the price going down? So anyways, when the bears start losing momentum, the red color is going to turn into, is this pink or just a lighter red color? But let's call it pink. It looks pink to me. So you go from red into this pink color, and you can clearly see the histogram is going to shrink, all right? You are going to see higher lows, all right, chat? You are going to see some higher lows because every single histogram is going to be higher than the previous one. So you see this one was bigger. This one is, smaller than the last one. This is smaller than the last one. So these are giving us higher lows. And of course, we go from pink into green, meaning the momentum is shifting from the bears to the bulls. So right now, the momentum is not with the bulls. The momentum is with the bears. And because of that, I want to be very respectful. And as a buyer, as a person who is only interested in Bitcoin, when the momentum is with the bulls, I want to stay on the sideline until we go from red to pink and to green. And I will talk about a strategy later on. Right now, I just want to show you exactly what we are looking at. So this is the monthly right now. And this is a very, very important time frame. Because when the monthly is bearish, when the bears are in control of the market on the monthly time frame, it could take 6 to 12 months. And depending on the asset, sometimes it could take years until the momentum shifts from bears to bulls. Let's go to the weekly. What do we have on the weekly? Well, on the weekly, the bears recently were in full control of Bitcoin. All right, you can clearly see the histogram was red, but we went from red to pink. So this meant that the bears started losing momentum. All right, and that reflected in the price. This is why you saw the price of Bitcoin go from 80,000 all the way up to what? All the way up to $96,000. Why do you think I was able to predict the Bitcoin was going to go from 87,000 to 96,000. This was also one of the reasons, because when I was looking at the weekly and I was looking at the weekly MACD, and I saw that the momentum indicator is not as strong as it was, recently, I became very optimistic, and I thought in the short term price was going to go up. Now, I know what some of you guys may be thinking. Well, because we are going from pink, we went from red to pink, surely we should be going into green, which is a bullish momentum, and that means the bulls are going to take control of this market. Chat, yes and no. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why it is yes and no. You see, your higher time frame is like your GPS, all right? It gives you your final destination. And when it comes to the market, let me try to break something to you. So that way, next time you analyze the market, you know exactly what you're looking at. And, you don't get caught up in short-term noise that could potentially put your portfolio at risk. You see, when it comes to these time frames right here, I'm just gonna start with I'm just gonna start with the monthly. I don't want to go into the yearly, the quarterly, the semi-year. I don't want to get into that stuff, right? I'm just gonna start from the monthly. You see, your monthly time frame is more important than your weekly. Your weekly time frame is more important than your daily time frame. Your daily is more important than your hourly. All right? Let's just say the 4 hour, because that's what I use. Your 4 hour is more important than your 1 hour. You get the picture, right? Your 1 hour is going to be more important than the minutes. So if the weekly is turning bullish, but your monthly is still bearish, you need to pay attention more on the monthly. And if you do anything with the weekly, you want to make sure this is nothing but short term. Because as long as the monthly is not bullish, this is not going to be bullish much longer. If your weekly is bearish, but your daily is turning bullish, whatever you do, make sure it's not long term. Make sure it is only short term, because as long as that weekly is bearish, this is not going anywhere. All right, this is only bullish in the short term. Same thing with the daily. If the daily is bearish, but your 4 hour is bullish, whatever you do on the 4 hour, make sure you are in and out. This is not a position that you should be holding for much longer. Remember, your higher time frame is always more important than your lower time frame. So your monthly is going to override your weekly. Your weekly is going to override your daily. Your daily 4 hour. You get the picture. So what that means is, all right, I'm going to show you guys examples. Since the monthly momentum indicator is bearish, but on the weekly time frame, the momentum is not as bearish as a monthly, you don't want to take this one very serious, because right here, the big dog said, no, we are not going anywhere anytime soon. And let me tell you exactly what went on right here. You see right here, what went on is this. Like, what happened right here is very simple, guys. The market doesn't go down in a straight line. Those that are shorting or those that are longing, at some point they are going to take profits. Somebody may call it, or, sometimes people call it either seller exhaustion or buyer exhaustion. You are going to take some profits. So those that are shorting Bitcoin, let's just say from, $118,000. By the time the price is approaching major key levels, what do you think those guys are doing? Do you think they're holding on to that position, or are they thinking about taking profits because we may get a bounce? That's exactly what these investors are doing. They are taking profits. I'm up 32% already. And if I over average that position, this position right here is probably 200-300% in profits. Let me take profits. Let me let the market bounce, and we'll come back to short it again. This is where you get this bounce right here. And remember, without this bounce, we don't really have the next major leg down. So the worst thing that can happen to Bitcoin, or the worst thing that happened to Bitcoin recently, is this move right here. Because this move provides the opportunity to those that were on the sideline waiting for a bounce, or those that took profits and waited on the sideline to get back into a fresh new position. All right? This is why you have momentum go from very strong selling into, not really too much. Yes, the market is bearish, but, the bears are not really as strong as, when this was happening. And of course, you can't blame them. Look, we go from $126,000 down to $80,000. The smartest thing to do is to take some profits. So, right now, what we are most likely to experience over the next couple of weeks is exactly this right here. Notice how in the last bear market, and I'll show you guys multiple examples that looks exactly like this. In the last bear market, price of Bitcoin goes from $68,000, or let's call it $69,000, down to around $34,000. All right, remember, somebody shorted in the $60,000 range. The price of Bitcoin comes down. It is approaching a major support, a place where most likely new buyers are going to step in. You look at the MACD histogram. We were extremely, bearish. The bears were full in control of the market. And then all of a sudden, we go from red into this pink color, meaning the momentum was still bearish, but not as bearish. All right. Price of Bitcoin, of course, that was reflected in the price. We go from $34,000 all the way up to $48,000. Remember what I said a couple minutes ago? The worst thing that can happen is the bounce. They took profits. Those that were on the sideline waited for a bounce. Those that took profits, adding those that were on the sideline, had the opportunity to enter a fresh new position right here, guys, from that $48,000. Now, here, you got your first green. You have your second green right here. I think you have green, another green right here. Here, you probably thought, all right, you thought here the bulls were getting back in control of this market, only to end up as a fake out. Because right after that, guys, look who was once again in control of the market. The bears. You see the colors of the histogram, all right? It's not pink. It is red, right? It is red. Now, let me show you why, despite going from pink into green, why the market, never changed. Like, why we never rotate from or shift from, bears into bulls. Well, let me show you exactly what was happening on the monthly. So you see, all right, I've highlighted the area because I want to show you what was going on the monthly. So this was from January 31st, 2022 until early April 2022. So if you go to the monthly, we are looking for January until April. Chad, look. Do you see the momentum on the monthly? Were we bearish or were we bullish? We were bearish. Remember, despite weekly momentum turning bullish, the monthly was never phased. All right, the monthly was always bearish. And because the monthly was always bearish, it doesn't matter what the weekly was going to do. It was never going to change the monthly time frame. It was never going to, come into something that was sustainably bullish for months or weeks and weeks and months. That was never going to happen. Because as long as the monthly was still bearish, the market was always bound to go down. the momentum indicator on the weekly was always going to give us a false signal. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a trap. And this is the same trap that you have right now. What you have right now is a Bitcoin that looks like on the weekly, the bears are running out of momentum and we're about to shift from a bearish market into a bullish market. But what many are failing to realize is that the monthly is not entertained by that idea. No, the monthly says, hey, the bears are in control of this market. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as the bears are in control of this market, we are going to continue down. And this is why when the price is up on the daily time frame, the 1 hour, the 4 hour, this is why you shouldn't react, guys. And when you see, right, when you see posts on social media predicting that the price of Bitcoin is about to go up to new all-time highs, what I want you to do is I want you to pull up the MACD. I want you to go to the monthly time frame, and I want you to look if the momentum is with the buyers or with the sellers. As long as you have this red, you shouldn't be anywhere around this market. And I can tell you right now, guys, look, I don't want to get into, let's count how many histogram, before we turned bullish last time. Yo, we are over. Look, last time we had 1, 2, 3. We just got 1, 2, 3, guys. Like, we're not even into, bar number 6, bar number 7. No, we are literally in the early days of this bear market. I'm not here to make any of you guys nervous. I am not here because I want to be bearish on the market. If there's a person out there that would like a bullish market, it is me. Because in a bullish market, profits. In a bullish market, you can turn $1,000 into $100,000. Now, I'm not saying everybody's going to be able to do it, but that is an opportunity that exists in a bull market. In a bear market, I don't think you get an opportunity like that. And if there is an opportunity like that, it doesn't exist for the average guy because you have to be very sophisticated. So this is what I wanted to do, to break down the state of Bitcoin from a momentum indicator on who is truly, truly in control of BTC right now and over the next couple months, based on what we have. And the last part that I also want to say is this. I'm just going to talk about, I won't spend too much time on this one. The MACD in terms of, you get a crossover, when you have a sell signal and when you have a buy signal. Remember, the monthly over the weekly over the monthly. What I've seen recently, at least on X, because I am on X, people are looking at this weekly MACD, and the prediction is that we're about to get a crossover, which is a bullish indication, and because of that, we should be buyers. So basically what they're doing is they are looking at this, and they say, hey, this is going to be, it's going to turn into something like this or something like this very soon. But chat, let me point out something to you. When we got this, and when we got this right here, let me show you what the monthly MACD was looking like. The monthly MACD was bullish. All right? The monthly MACD was in a bullish phase. All right? The blue line was well above the red line. The blue line right here was well above the red line. So when we did get these bullish confirmations, of course, that was a buy opportunity because the monthly said we are still in a bullish uptrend. The difference this time is that you are about to get a bullish confirmation, but the monthly is in a bearish phase. All right, this is a bearish phase because we had a crossover or a cross down. The blue line is below the red. So what that means is if this weekly blue line goes above the red, that is most likely a false signal. And let me give you an example of that. If we go back to the monthly, no, actually, no, let's go back to the weekly. If we go back to the weekly and we come all the way back here, I'm going to show you an example using this one right here. All right. Sometimes around April of 2022, we had a bullish MACD crossover. But let's take a look at the monthly. April 2022, what was the monthly MACD looking like? Oh, we were in a bearish phase. So, doesn't matter what the weekly did, price still went back down. Like, price still trended down. And I know some of you guys may be thinking, well, you're showing us the same example. You got to show us something else. Well, let me show you something else, guys. If we go back to, 20, which one should I give you that gave us a false signal? All right, I'll come right here. This is 2018, July 2018. It looks like we're about to get a bullish signal. But July 2018, what was the monthly looking like? Oh, July 2018, we were in a bearish phase. So it doesn't matter what the weekly did. We still go from $7,000 down to $3,000. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully that was helpful. I really, really wanted to break down BTC from a momentum outlook or indicator. And I wanted to share with you why, when you see me talk about how bearish I am on this market, it's not because I want to be bearish. It is simply because that is exactly what the market is. The market is in a bearish regime. And I'm not talking about the short term, because if this is all about the short term, okay, let's go to the 15 minutes. All right. BTC earlier today went from $88,000 to $91,000. I'm sure some of you guys, you got hooked. But look at this. A couple of days ago, price goes from 87,000 to 90,000. I'm sure some of you guys, you got hooked right here. But guess what? Have we really changed anything? Like, has anything changed despite all of this? Absolutely not. Chat, I hope this is helpful. And I hope I'm not putting you to sleep. I hope that is not what's going on. But, someone's got to do it. And I feel the responsibility to be among the few who are very honest. And, the bias is only based on what the chart is telling us. Momentum. I will post these videos individually because I did record them. So I recorded this one where I'm talking about the momentum indicator, and also recorded the one where I'm looking at pure price action from like a bullish regime, higher highs, higher lows, and things of that nature. But anyways, I appreciate you people for tuning in as always. Just don't forget, guys, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we are still here. Let's keep the show going. Hopefully you guys are still with me. All right, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and let's keep on going. Let me see. Was there anything else that I wanted to talk about in regards to Bitcoin? If you have any questions in regards to Bitcoin, please ask, because I'm about to jump into everything else. altcoins, Ethereum, Solana, blah blah blah. I'm about to jump into those things. Smash the like button, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching this, I have you guys right here. So yeah, show some love by smashing the like button. Oh well, oh well, oh well. All right, let's shift gears and get into other stuff. All right, let's talk about what shall we talk about? Um, you guys, I'm just gonna group a bunch of these altcoins and I'm just gonna cover them all together until I see something that you guys are more interested in, more specifically. I'm gonna start with Solana, and then actually, I'm gonna stick with, I'm gonna continue on with the MACD indicator because I think the value is immense. All right, right here. So we have Solana right here at $127. Just like Bitcoin, the bears are full in control of Solana on the most important time frame. So if you look at the MACD histogram, looking at these bars right here, this is an indication of momentum. Like this is a momentum indicator. As long as these bars are red, you shouldn't be a buyer from a long-term outlook, and you shouldn't be expecting the price of Solana to go up. Instead, yeah, you should be shorting it. You should be taking advantage of every short opportunity. As far as I'm concerned, we are going to be here for a while. And right now, I'm looking at Solana. I gotta be very honest. Like you have this support right here, 95 all the way up to, this $120 range. Once you lose this, I mean, you're looking at price of Solana coming all the way back into, the $60 range, the $50 range, the 40. Who knows where we end up? But that is the reality, the moment we lose this box right here. And I think we are very, very close. And also, if you just look at this, this looks like, a head and shoulders pattern on the monthly. So, once you lose this neck right here, like it's not looking good. All right. It is not looking good. And I know, so many Solana bulls out there, but Chad, it doesn't matter, man. So, in my opinion, the top is already in, and this is pretty much the beginning of, going below $100. It's not a straight line, right? The thing is that these higher time frames, they take time. If I'm looking at Solana, below $100, like we gotta be patient until maybe sometimes in March. I think by March time, this right here should look much more different. Like you should see, price somewhere around $80, potentially $70, or somewhere in the 90s. All right, let's see how this all plays out. If you look at the weekly MACD, in terms of momentum, looks like the bears are running out of, momentum. But the truth is, as long as that monthly looks like that, if this gives you a buy signal, it's nothing but a fake signal, right? So like right here, yes, we had a buy signal, but guess what? You go back to May of 2025, the monthly, we were still, all right, excuse me, we were still in a bearish phase. And this is why, when you look at the performance, like it really was nothing more than, a recovery of this drop right here. And what ended up with a monthly lower high. Remember, nothing goes down in a straight line. But the question is, do we have a continuation of the uptrend? And the answer is, when you look at this, is no, because this was not a continuation of the uptrend. All right, this gave us a weekly lower high and a monthly lower high. And right now, you're looking at a potential lower low coming in sometimes in the next couple of weeks. And we are going to get another move, maybe not very similar to this, but you are going to get another bounce. And then we might go down again. Like, I don't know how this all going to play out, but trust and believe you are going to get another one like this. Percentage-wise, maybe not as big, but you are going to get another lower high. Like, if you put a trend line right here, I don't want to say I promise you, but at some point, we will come back to retest this trend line. So I don't know how long this will take, but, maybe in 2027, maybe in 2028, we will come back to retest this trend line right here. Just like, if you go back, you put a trend line right here. Imagine we are back in, imagine we're like May 2022. You say, hey, at some point, we will come back to retest the trend line. And sure enough, we did come back to retest the trend line around $41. This trend line right here. So you are going to get exactly the same thing, okay? So if I'm looking at Solana, yeah, I'm not impressed. If price goes up even $20, I am not impressed. Even if price goes up like $30, I'm not impressed. I don't think it results in anything sustainably bullish. And then you go down into, look, I'll give you an example, actually. Speaking of that, you see Fetch AI, guys, like this is a classic example of exactly what I'm talking about. You see, this is when we turn bearish on, or this is when the bears fully took control of FET, all right? Sometimes December 2024. At the time, you say price was around between 130 and 190. And look, the bears have been in control of FET, but throughout the entire drop, like we've had multiple, like these are big moves, man. Let me show you an example of them. Like this is a big one. This was almost like a 200% run. This was a 180% run. Yo, you may get, when you are going through this move right here, you are probably thinking, gosh, this is the beginning of another bull market. Yo, only for a couple months later, not only do you top, you get a retracement. Not only do you get a retracement, yo, you give back 100% of the gains and you lose some more. All right, we give back this entire gains and we ended up going lower. Like that is the power of a bearish monthly setup. And I'm gonna be very honest with you guys. As long as this thing looks like this, don't touch it. From a long-term perspective, do not be a buyer. In a short term, of course you can trade it. Maybe you go to the 1 hour, you look for some bullish setup, some short-term stuff, you jump in and you jump out. But from a long-term outlook, absolutely not. And then you take a look at XRP. What do we have right here? All right, look, XRP, this is a bearish monthly confirmation. Guess who is taking full control? Oh, he's in control right now. The bears are in control of XRP. So this is why when I go to the weekly and I see this nonsense right here, what I say is that, hey, XRP looks really, really bad. The only way for my opinion to change, price of XRP will have to break above 240. I will have to get a pullback. I will have to put in a higher low. And I'll have to see price continue up. That is the only reason I change my bias on XRP. Like right now, my bias is bearish. I think I was analyzing this and telling someone exactly what I wanted to see. This is not me saying, hey, XRP is turning bullish. No, somebody asked me about XRP, and what I said was, hey, you want to be bullish? Fine. But make sure you get something like this before you do anything. Don't look at it and say, I want to be a buyer at 192 instead of jumping in around 250. No, don't look at it that way. Because looking at it from that lens is going to result in a 50% drop. It is going to result in an 80% drop. All right. Wait until the momentum is up. Wait until the trend is up. So I'll give you an example. Right here, you could have been a buyer because XRP trending sideways for multiple months. All right. Higher highs, higher lows. And the moment you got this, the moment you had this push right here, pull back, higher low, and then you got this breakout, this was the moment to be a buyer. Even if you don't buy it right here around 70 cents, all right, you could have jumped in around $1 and you would have done very well. You jump in around $1. Now this is a weekly, and then you catch a nice 240% move. Now you don't have to wait on the weekly because a weekly might move too far and not give you a good entry. But let me show you a great entry based on the daily. All right, this is XRP right here. This is 60 cents right here. Okay, but before we get there, look, the structure is breaking. Look at right here. Take out the higher lows. Price goes up. Take out another high. Yo, right here, you should have been a buyer. Not only that, price is above the 200 daily moving average. Now that's a different conversation. Or you jump in right here. The moment we break above 66 cents, once we get this daily close, your entry is around 70 cents instead of being around $1. If you jumped in at 70 cents, performance-wise, this is what you would have done. You would have done a 300% move. Don't say I want to be a buyer at $1.90. No, that is the wrong way to look at this. Because this, when you end up with something like this is not going to look pretty. This is going to force you in a position where, like, who knows what your thoughts are going to be, during this entire crash. Are you thinking about, oh my God, I got to cut my losses because my $5,000 is about to turn into $500 or $200. Oh my gosh, I got a dollar cost average. Now, not only did you already invest $5,000, that's now worth $2,000. Now you're thinking about adding more cash into a losing position because you are trying to bring your average down. Right? That is not the way to do it, because when you add more dollars, first of all, opportunity cost, because there's other assets that are absolutely going bananas right now. Second of all, now let's say your average is, let's just say 80 cents. Let's say the bottom is around 60 cents. Your average is 80 cents. Now, instead of a $5,000 investment, now you are with a $10,000 investment. And that $10,000 is worth around, I don't know, $6,000. You down $4,000. You are still down 40%. Now, what if XRP actually never recovers? Because this is crypto. This is not, a well-established stock like on Amazon, where you can say, hey, I'm just going to hold for a couple of years. I believe price will get back to my break even. I believe price will go up and I will make profits, but it might take some time. No, this is XRP. This altcoin can die any time. So those are the things that you have to consider. All right? Those are the things that you have to consider. And there's not many that that talks about these type of reality. Oh my gosh, guys. Open. Yeah, absolutely. Let me do an update on Open. And I think this is my last one. I'll be done because we've done more than enough, guys. I believe we've done more than enough. So give me a second. I'm going to do Open. All right. Open. Let me do open. So, open. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Yo, there's a bunch of stocks that are bullish right now. But let me see. What is open? Open is been in this like crazy pullback. So open, okay. So let me kind of analyze it from that momentum. So open has got a very bullish momentum on the monthly, which is very good. It's already in an uptrend. So pullbacks are buy opportunities. The only question now is, where is the low? All right, I think that to me is the question. Where is the low? So I have, very, very key levels. I have here, right, $1.74. I'm not saying that's where we're going, but that's a major level. Like, I don't want to see price go below that. And then you also have, like this range right here, previous all-time highs. This is a very, very important range between 440 and 550. So these are levels where we are potentially going to get some very strong support. If I go to the daily, all right, if I'm on the daily right here, we have a very, very clean, like this is a clean range. You see this range right here? It's very clean. So far, like we in a continuation of this downtrend on the daily, right? You see these lower highs. So we are very close to the 200, right? Which this is an interesting area. I gotta be very honest. And not only that, we are also very close to this low right here of 530. So this is a low, and this is a higher low right here. I want to see what this is going to look like, because this to me is a time to look at open and start looking for opportunities. So if you get something that looks like this, where price comes down to around 560, whatever, 568, and then we bounce, I think you should be a buyer. But if you want to know when is the price going to start running, it's very simple. Price needs to break above 790 first. Once you get above the last lower high, and then you pull back, and then you put in a higher low. So if we can get something like this, and then you pull back, and then you do this, that will be the beginning of another major run. So we need to wait and see what this is going to do. Now, I would say this is a good time to start a position. If you are a long-term holder and you just want a dollar cost average. My reason is because we are just right above the 200 weekly. I think that's a big, big level. And not only that, price is above the 21 weekly. All right. In an uptrend at the 21 and the 50, you should be a buyer. All right. If you go below the 50, we got some concern. But as long as the price is above here, I think you want to be a buyer. Buying not because the low is in. Like, we don't know if the low is in until price gets above this 790. But I think this is a good place to start building a position. And even if we can come back into this range right here, I think you should continue to be a buyer. The only way I will flip my bias from being bullish to bearish is if the price was to go below $1.74. So basically, as long as the price is above $1.74, like, I'm very bullish on open. It's just that in the short term, we are dealing with a pullback. And when you think about, how long we've pulled back, you go from the top all the way down to the bottom. This is a 50% pullback. So I think after a 50% pullback, building a position is the right thing to do. If you go to the lower time, I'm trying to see how the 4-hour looks like. If we bottom here, let me see. Let me clean this up. Like, if we can bottom here, That would be like an inverse head and shoulders. Like this could be your left shoulder. This could be oops, left shoulder, right shoulder, and then this would be the neck. So if we can, yeah, if we can bounce right here, look, if we can bounce like this, let's say you get like if price can go to like 620, I think jumping in with like a stop loss below 596, I think that's a trade, man. I think you can ride it all the way up to around. Like if you can jump in right here, yeah, you can catch like a nice 20% move. So, anyways, yeah, I like it. Very bullish, short term, going through a pullback. Nothing wrong with that. Part of the plan. I mean, this is a stock that went up like freaking 1,000%. You know, going from like 60 cents all the way up to, $10. I mean, this is ridiculous right here. Yeah, I mean that's a 19x, man. So going up that much, yeah, you needed to pull back. But yeah, appreciate you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the live, and I'll see you guys next time.